Greetings here and welcome to Simple Scotch Reviews. Here we're going to do a quick impromptu comparison of these two whiskeys, both from Edradour Distillery. Both are single malt Scotch whiskey from the Highland region. One is Edradour 10. It is bottled at 43% ABV, and Edradour 12 Caledonia is bottled at 46% ABV. Both are Edradour single malt Scotch whiskeys. I will say that based off what I've been able to find, my understanding is that both are ex-bourbon and ex-sherry matured. Neither are exclusively ex-sherry matured. I know before I got them, a lot of people were telling me both were ex-sherry matured, and based off the flavor, you'd be inclined to believe them, but what I could find, ex-bourbon and sherry cask. However, it is multiple years of sherry cask, at least for sure in the Caledonia, is what I've been able to find. So it's not like just a 6-month light finish with sherry in the background. Sherry's got an obvious presence here. So let's dive on in. So the two of these whiskeys, for me, going between the two, I'm going to do some quick hitters between the two. Caledonia, fruit is the immediate obvious note. Edradour 10, the dark, musty, and nutty notes. So to me, that's the what's going to hit the senses first with both of them. So yeah, it's quite, when you have them side by side, you notice that musty darkness of the 10 a lot more. So on the 10, on the nose, I get some significant nut notes, some toasted almond, fruit. Both have there's a winey fruit note. I'm not able to really pick apart the fruit notes on these. It happens from time to time with wine cask whiskey for me. Other wine cask whiskeys like some Aberlour, Glendronach, Macallan, pretty much all the others, I don't struggle as much with it, but there's been some other whiskeys. I think the most recent one I reviewed was Aberfeldy 18 red wine cask finish that I struggled with picking out the fruit notes. It was just kind of fruit, period. But yeah, the 10-year-old's got some fruit in there. Both of the fruit notes on here are very just overly ripe fruits. Definitely a very big contrast. But you can certainly tell that they're from the same distillery. It's not a surprise. So on the 10, like I said, nuts, some almond, some dark mustiness, and fruit. On to the Caledonia 12-year-old. Definitely get fruit. It's just much more lively, and I'm not saying that more alcohol, younger smelling. It's older whiskey. It's honestly just lighter flavors, and it's a lot fresher fruitiness to me. Again, the fruit seems overripe, so I guess that's not what I'm trying to say, but it's the mustiness, the nut nose, but the mustiness of the 10 is much more than the 12, so it leads this one to be fresh. Even though this is not necessarily vibrant fruit, it just doesn't have as much mustiness, leading to it being more fresh. Definitely has some fruit, lots of fruit. Maybe a hint of vanilla in the 12 that I didn't get in the 10. 12's got more of that Christmassy note that you get in some sherry with the baking spice, Christmas cake, that kind of thing. It's more Christmassy, if I'd say. I do get a graham cracker note in the 12-year-old. Let's move on to the flavor. Ten-year-old is fairly thin whiskey. It's good. The mustiness is detectable. I've heard it referred to as the Edradour funk by those who love it, not just as people hating on it. it's quickly fading. So I get some fruit flavor in here, like I mentioned, from the nose. Still get the nut flavors, kind of just a carryover from the nose. Had to get a little more there. It fades fast, so I will say that. Finish extremely short. Nuts and fruit, then the mustiness a little, but then quickly drop off to finish and gone. But during that drop off, you do get a bit of that baking, spicy, cinnamony type note, but it's short and fleeting. Let's get a little water here. See on this Caledonia 12. So right away, for me, the mouthfeel, very different. And I don't want you to take away from this thinking that I think 43% whiskeys, well, it's because the alcohol difference makes this one thicker than this one. No, I have had plenty of 43% whiskeys, and honestly, even a lot of 40% whiskeys, if we're getting into ABV, that are thicker than this whiskey. So it's not an ABV thing. It's just personally, yeah, I find it thin. Caledonia is definitely the winner in that regard. Yeah, so to compare the two, Edradour 10, I get the nutty notes, a little bit of fruit, well, not a little bit, a bit of fruit, but fruit isn't center stage. That's what I mean by a bit of fruit. So the nuts, the fruit, and the mustiness all together as one is kind of what's going on. On the 12, there's fruit. That's the main dominant thing. So I get a lot more fruit in that regard. Much more richer mouthfeel, fruit. I also get baking spices throughout this one. More on the back end, but more baking spices in the 12. From the 10, I can find them, but it kind of is short-lived in that fall off of a finish. Finish is much longer as well in the 12. Can maybe even pick out a bit of citrus, some orange maybe in the 12-year-old. But there's definitely a lot more fruit going on and baking spice throughout the course of it. There's in both of these whiskeys a woody note. To me, the woody note's much more lingering in the 12 because the flavor lingers longer. So there's the explosion of fruit and baking spice notes, and then the woodiness kind of appears as the fruit starts to fade, and then the woodiness carries you out through the finish, which is lingering. So I guess nose, palate, finish, all are winners here on the 12 over the 10-year-old. Both are worth trying. Both are good whiskeys. Personally, I find the 12-year-old better. It's just a great nosed whiskey. For me, and my palate tends to really prefer those fruity whiskeys, so that's probably why, because I prefer that sherry cask fruit over the sherry cask nut notes. You can get a variety of different notes from the sherry cask. Fruits are just one of the part of the spectrum, but for me, that's probably my favorite part of the spectrum for sherry cask whiskeys. So 12-year-old wins in that regard. If you're not as about the fruit dominant whiskey, if you like the mustiness, if you're into Springbank and you're looking for a whiskey, it's not the same, I know. But Springbank, I get a funk, and so I'd say, yeah, the 10-year-old, if you're more into those, if nutty, a little bit of mustiness and some fruit, if that appeals to you more than just more fruit, baking spice, then that's kind of your differentiation between the two, and hopefully you'll be able to glean something from that if you're looking at trying an Edradour but you can't get both or just want to get one. Hopefully this helps with that. Check out the reviews, like, subscribe. Lots on the channel: Scotch, Irish, Canadian, American, all sorts of whiskeys coming up on there. I will also direct you, if you like comparison reviews, there are other comparisons. I'd like to add more. I have not been able to add as many as I'd like. I think there's a Bunnahabhain one on there. I know for sure there's an Aberfeldy comparison, at least one between different Glenlivets as well. So Aberfeldy, Glenlivet comparisons. I think I did an Auchentoshan buyer's guide. I've also done a Macallan one, I believe. There's several comparison multi-whiskey reviews, so if those are your thing, check those out. But if you just want whiskey reviews, there's tons of them on there. Hopefully these reviews help when you're trying to determine what to buy and try. So check out the channel, like, subscribe, and enjoy your whiskey journey. Thanks for watching.